The Biden-Harris administration has been really desperate for a win as of recent. I mean, you need to look no further than how they put Biden out there in Europe, only to have him humiliated over and over again for ready confirmation that the administration is utterly grasping at straws to try and find some way to spin something as a win for the flagging president. You see, his polling numbers have not exactly gone well, and this has not been helped by the fact that he's been almost entirely incapable of getting any legislation through, no matter what it is, whether it be the most mundane thing possible, or if it's one of his big resolutions, which is one that we actually have an update on. You see, the Democrats have been trying to get through a particular election reform bill, read Democrats Take Over Elections bill, through the Senate for quite a while now. And one of their bigger obstacles to doing that was Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia, who has been vehemently against it until they essentially bribed him into voting for it, only to have it still be blocked by the filibuster and the fact that no Republicans are interested in voting for this thing even a little bit. So even then, it's still a stalemate. They are completely incapable of getting any sort of foreign policy win, any policy win, period. And this has been a big problem for Biden's polling numbers. You see, his polling numbers have been flagging for quite a while now, since debatably the end of April. But this hasn't been shown very much in aggregates because push polling has been keeping his numbers up quite well up until just a bit recently. And it has gotten to the point where the administration can no longer ignore the problem of Biden, and that is the fact that he only has approval on one issue, and that, of course, is COVID. And you need to look no further than Fauci desperately trying to push the Delta variant, despite having lost quite a bit of his credibility in just the past few weeks, for complete confirmation as to exactly how desperate they are to keep this in the news. But it's not working. People don't really care about COVID anymore, and they aren't really interested in looking into it in many respects. They don't longer have a win on COVID, which was their one place where they actually had wins at all. Of course, completely based on Donald Trump's policies with regard to that, but that's beside the point. That is also on top of the fact that a lot of the narratives on COVID-19 have been dropping. Just the most recent one being the idea that stay-at-home orders worked. You see, I've been making the argument for quite a while that stay-at-home orders logically make no sense and wouldn't stop COVID spread pretty much at all. And, well, the actual data studies, which are based on actual data rather than fake data, agree with me, with one study coming out just recently to confirm that exact fact. And it's not as though they can go to something like the economy, which has been recovering very slowly, for a win either. You see, they have been massively overestimating how many jobs they're going to get in every jobs approval, jobs month. They have been consistently underperforming in that aspect. Of course, the Fed chairman still coming out saying, no, it's still fine. We have a strong economy. It's not a problem. We're not getting into stagflation territory. We're not going to have any economic problems in the future. No, this inflation is just a temporary mirage. It's not going to stick. Oh, no. But of course, that sort of rhetoric is ultimately ineffectual. A lot of this comes down to the fact that Biden isn't a very popular guy, nor is he particularly effective. It ends up being that when he can get a win, which is very few and far between, it doesn't last very long in polling and ends up being completely overshadowed by some gaffe or nonsense that was going on surrounding all of these sorts of things. Even with COVID, people who he did have a lot of support on, I think he ended up being kind of counteractive to it and leading it out of the public consciousness a lot by his continued gaffes and inconsistencies with how he is addressing the COVID rules. He broke his COVID rule on the day he made it. He made a rule about masks You have to wear masks on public property, on federal property. Same day, not 6 hours later, not wearing a mask on public property, on federal property, just out in the open. This isn't the guy who you go to for public approval. It just isn't. It turns out that you cannot depend on these sorts of little games. You can't depend on COVID alone. You can't depend particularly on things you're lying about constantly for your approval. It doesn't end up working that way. And that is what the Harris-Biden administration has discovered. And it has led them to doing a number of extremely rash things in any desperate attempt to get some sort of win. That's why they've been rabble-rousing about getting rid of the filibuster. That's why they convinced Joe Manchin to vote for this election law. That's why they've been trying to push on all of these sorts of things. That's why he's been reversing a lot of Trump-era policy at a rate unprecedented for any sort of president. And even then, it's still ineffective, because it turns out that the states matter. You know how I've been saying 30 state houses over and over and over again to try and get rid of the black pills from a lot of you guys? See why? Because even though Biden removed the tentative critical race theory ban that Trump put into place in 2020, critical race theory is still being banned all across the country, at least in red states, where critical race theory bans have been put into place, and I think 16 states at this point. His gun control agenda has completely failed, leading to multiple states, I think there are 4 at this point, that have declared themselves Second Amendment sanctuary states, saying that they will not comply with any unconstitutional dictates from the Biden administration. These states have foiled Biden at every level. And this is something that should not be understated. And it is something that you need to recognize is evidence of hope. It's evidence that you shouldn't take the black pill. Black pill, go away. You're not needed here. We don't need you. You're just unhelpful. You're just annoying. Go away. That's my opinion on black pills. But that's what this leads to. Fundamentally, Biden is incapable of getting a win because he is a lame duck president. He has the smallest majority in the Senate ever. He is one of the only presidents, I think the only president, who actually lost House seats upon coming into office ever. He came into office losing a couple of state houses, one state house. He has nothing. He gained almost nothing through the election in 2020. If you look anywhere past the top 2, if you look at all past Biden or Trump, who won, the election was an utter massacre of the Democrats. That's what 2020 was, on many levels. That's not a president with political capital. That's not a president that can get a win. That's not a president that survives the midterms, and both figuratively and maybe literally, considering just how old he is and how old he seems. But that's where I'm going to leave you guys off. If you enjoyed that video, do in fact subscribe down below and share this video wherever you see fit, on Gab, Minds, and Parler, where I am, and where if I see my video being shared, I might rewind and repost it and all that sort of stuff, or like it or whatever. On top of that, check out my other platforms. I'm on Rumble, I'm on Odyssey, I'm on BitChute, and most importantly, check out breakingonthedaily.locals.com, a community on locals for this channel and me and all that sort of stuff, where you can talk about politics, hey, talk about games over there. I do some stuff like that. And that's where I'm going to leave you guys off. I'm KelKidman, this has been Breaking on the Daily, and I'm out.